Jay was 30 years old and had the most gorgeous blue eyes that I have ever seen on a man. So, of course, he was straight. We worked together, that's how we knew each other, and one day he starts texting me, asking me my opinions about music, which, if you don't know, is kind of my jam, okay? And he told me that his favorite song was Constantine by Something Corporate, and I will be damned if that song did not show up on the next 4 playlists that I made, because I fell hard, you guys. Like, every song on the radio was about this beautiful man. Y'all know what I'm talking about. And I would stay up late at night and I would wonder if he knew how I felt, and I would listen to Teardrops on my guitar on repeat while I cried in my bathtub. Yeah. Over time, as we got closer and started hanging out more, he started telling me more intimate details about his life, like how he used to be Mormon, and he used to be married, and he had 2 kids. And then he told me that his younger brother had shot himself in the head when they were teenagers, the night before he was supposed to leave for mission. And when I saw the pain on his face, I wanted to hold him and let him know that everything was going to be okay. The problem with all these feelings that I had was that I already had a boyfriend, and his name was David, and we'd been dating for 3 years. And David was much more into video games than music. He did not know who Tracy Chapman was. He did not know who Kurt Cobain was. And it's probably because of this that I felt myself drawn to this sad man with the ice blue eyes, and I took every opportunity that I could to spend time with him. And then one day, you all, it happened. We're sitting in mine and David's apartment. It's just me and Jay, and he tells me that he thinks that he might be bisexual, but mostly straight. And then he starts feeling my knee through the hole in my jeans. And he tells me that I'm beautiful and that he wants to do George Michael, I want your sex kind of things. And I am very flabbergasted, but I have a boyfriend, and so I was like, as much as I really, really want to do that, I can't. And he said that he understood, and he made his excuses, and he left. But I still wanted him, you all, because he would call me and tell me that he was reading Byron in the bathtub, and he would call me and tell me that Tracy Chapman's Fast Car was just on the radio and that he had to pull over into a parking lot just so that he could listen to it. And I thought that I had found my soulmate. And so I broke up with David. And I moved into my cousin's house, and it was terrible. I was so alone because, I thought to myself, you know what? If I can just stick through this, he will get through all of that shit, right? And then we can be together. We're supposed to be together because we both love Tracy Chapman, right? And so I would sit in my room and I would listen to all these mixes that I made about love unrequited and love lost and love gained, and I thought to myself, this will work. But then he stopped returning my phone calls. And he only answered my text messages sometimes, and occasionally he would send those naughty text messages that used to thrill me, but now they just made me feel dirty. I asked him to stop, and he would stop for a while, but then every month or so, kind of like clockwork, the light would come on my phone, and his name would be there, and my heart would flutter, and I would always respond. I leaned on my friends during this to process it, and they told me that he was a user. They called him a monster. And I thought to myself, maybe we too have that in common. We're just 2 monsters. But over time, I started talking to David again. And he knew that I was young and prone to Taylor Swift lyrics. And I told him that I was crazy, and he said that he knew, but he thought it was endearing. And he stopped playing so many video games and was more present when we were together, and he bought me tickets and took me to see Loretta Lynn, even though he had no idea who she was or why I loved her so much. And so things were good, and we were back together. And once I got some space between Jake and I realized that, you know what, he wasn't a monster. He was just afraid. He was afraid of what other people would think about him. He was afraid of himself, and I had been there before, so I couldn't hate him for that, And so we lost touch. It happens. And then one day I got a phone call from a coworker who told me that Jay was gone, that he had made the same decision that his brother had all those years ago. And she was shocked and confused. She didn't know why he would do such a thing. But I did. I knew. And that night, whenever I went home, I threw myself into David's arms and I screamed and I cried and I said, he wasn't a monster. Jay wasn't a monster. And David said, I know, honey, I know. And it was in that moment that I realized that sometimes there is not a song for how you feel. Sometimes Tracy Chapman does not understand. Neither does Joni Mitchell, and definitely not Taylor Swift. And when the music doesn't work the way that it used to, the best thing to do, I've found, is to take the headphones off and be present with the person who's sitting next to you. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether or not they know who Loretta Lynn is. What matters is that they took you to the concert. Thank you.